Okay, we are live.
Please rise as you are able. I now call this meeting of City Council to order.
We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Please be seated. Welcome everyone to our virtual council meeting. I would like to, of course, begin by reminding everyone that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, City Council is practicing physical distancing, and all of the councilors, the executive management team, and the city clerk are participating via video conference. And the members of senior leadership team that have items on today's agenda are not visible, but are available to answer any questions council might have. The first item on the agenda is confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the City Council meeting held on October 5th, 2020 have been circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are adopted as printed and circulated. We have no awards and recognition or report from officers on tonight's agenda. We do have a deputation on the committee reports, so we're going to move right to that. We have one deputation request. It's by Mark Zimmerman concerning motion 20P042, an application for a zoning bylaw amendment located at 158, 162, 166, and 170 Ardagh Road and part of Lot 5, Concession 14 in the city of Barrie. So I will now call on Mr. Zimmerman to provide his deputation. Mr. Zimmerman, welcome to Barrie City Council, and in accordance with our procedural bylaw, a maximum of 5 minutes is permitted for your deputation. And the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Mark Zimmerman, 323 Crawford Street in Barrie, coming to you almost live and in brilliant audio. This is not the ideal format. It's a little more impressive when you have to face an audience of homeowners, but this is what we will make do with. So on this particular development, there's been a lot of paperwork flying back and forth. I read the planning report that was recently circulated as well. And basically as a summary, this development is on lands outside of the intensification corridor and still is out of character with the existing neighborhood. Ardagh Road is not an intensification corridor. With respect to this development, for example, just west of this site was an older farm rural property. In the past 5 or 6 years, it was sold and developed into single family homes of a substantial value, which is more like the existing homes. So what is the difference now? Further west along Ardagh Road, heading towards Old 131, There is significant development coming along, townhouses, condominiums, etc. That's on virgin land, which is fine and dandy for all is said and done. Now, read the planning department report, quote unquote, written and oral submissions on the balance were taken into account. I do kind of question that because what's being done is still pretty much the basic development. Barrie does have an official plan, and I noticed that we are working towards a new one as well. Submissions are being solicited. Ontario as well does have an official plan with respect to housing. Now, it does state a desire for mixed housing development, which is fine, but it shouldn't be to the detriment of the existing housing mix within the neighborhood and the value. Finally, I call it the root of all evil, money in particular. I went on the Zillow real estate website. Current real estate values in the Arda area, they call a median of 588,000, and that's all in townhouses, condos, etc. But it ranges all over the boards. 2 bedrooms, 650, all the way up to 731,000. Now, this development site, the cost range is quoting 425 to 500,000, which to me is a speculator's dream. I'd buy a couple if I could afford them. Speculators, I think, will pop in, buy several, rent them out, and they'll turn them into rentals, Airbnbs. And these are not people with a vested interest in home ownership. Now, revenue-wise, quo bono, who profits, follow the money. The existing taxes for the houses in existence now is roughly 14,000. Based on the planner's report, 273,000 for future, 325,000 cash in lieu, 99,000 in building permits. That's year one, $680-ish thousand profit right off the top. My wife is a retired engineering tech from a works department in the Golden Horseshoe. She's seen this for 30 years now. Developers usually get what they want. And in this particular case, this is not a housing development that is typical and suitable for an established neighborhood of single-family homes. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. I yield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zimmerman, for your deputation. Are there any questions from members of council for the deputant?
I'm surprised I'm the only deputant.
I don't. You are tonight, sir. Are there, there are a few members of council who I am seeing on and off the screen just because of the grid. Are there any members of council indicating you have questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Mr. Zimmerman, thank you very much for coming tonight, giving your deputation. The matter is up on council's agenda just a little bit later tonight.
Thank you very much for allowing me to participate.
Okay, members of council, I'm just going to ask you to bear with me a moment. The bandwidth appears to be low and I'm having some issue seeing everybody on the Zoom. So just bear with me for a moment. Okay, apologies for that. We're just trying to ensure that we've got enough bandwidth here that the Zoom is fully stable. So bear with us just another moment, members of council and those watching. And sorry, folks, we're just having IT look at the bandwidth issue, so you're going to need to bear with us for a minute or two here before we proceed with the agenda. Sorry, folks, I'm sure this is a problem all over the world in the age of COVID, but we have a number of folks here at City Hall who are experiencing delays on the Zoom. So in order to make sure we're conducting the meeting with everybody able to see everything, I am going to have to ask everybody just to hang tight another few minutes. We hope to be back as soon as possible with an answer on the bandwidth.
Seems better with the public.
Okay, folks, our apologies. What we're going to do here is the people who are at City Hall and are experiencing the delays on the Zoom are just going to log off the call, switch Wi-Fi networks, and come back on. The other network apparently has more bandwidth. So everyone at home, hang tight. Those at City Hall, you need to log off, switch on to the other Wi-Fi network, and then log back on. We'll hope to recommence in just a minute or two here. Okay, apologies for that, folks. I think others here are just coming back in.
I think we're good to proceed.
Thanks for bearing with us, folks. All right, I think we've got everybody back now. We'll hope that remains stable. Sorry about that. And guess that's the risk of living in the age of COVID, one of the many. Okay, if we are ready to commence again, I see all members of council. We'll resume our meeting. The next item on the agenda is tax applications. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have a motion regarding tax applications?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the list of tax applications for cancellation, reduction, or additions to taxes dated October 26, 2020, submitted by the Treasurer in the amount of $4,961.91 be approved.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the list of tax applications for cancellation, reduction, or additions to taxes dated October 26, 2020, submitted by the Treasurer in the amount of $4,961.91 be approved. Madam Clerk, as this is a remote meeting, have we received any objection to this list of application for cancellation, reduction, or addition of taxes?
No, Mayor Lehman, our office hasn't received any objections, but I would just want to confirm with the treasurer to make sure that his office has not received any.
Okay, Mr. Miller.
Three, to you, Mayor Lehman, we have not received any.
Good. Okay. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, I'll take the vote. Those in favor, please indicate. And my bandwidth is slow again, unfortunately, still here. Madam Clerk? Okay. None opposed. The motion is carried. This does bring us to the committee reports, but members of council, I'm afraid we've still got a couple of people here who are frozen, so you're going to have to bear with us another minute. Well, this is fun, members of council. I've switched over to my phone, which appears to be able to pick up the other network and is functioning all right. So you're going to have to bear with me just as we move through a few of these committee reports. I promise you won't have to look at the bobblehead much longer. There we go. Okay, Deputy Mayor Ward, I believe you have the motions. Go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated October 19th, 2020, now circulated, be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated October the 19th, 2020, now circulated, be received. This is to receive the report of the Finance and Corporate Services Committee dated October 6th, 2020. Comments or questions?
We're not hearing you, Mayor Lehman.
Okay, I'm going to go on audio.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yeah, I'll call the question on this section, then I'm going to ask you to wait, bear with us another minute. IT's just come into the chamber to help out. So I will call the question on Section A. Those in favor of Section A, please indicate. Okay, are any opposed? None, that carries. And we will just pause for another minute here.
Members of council, it appears that there's an issue at City Hall with the bandwidth. We do have a number of people here who are alternately freezing up and then okay and freezing up. So we do have a full agenda. I'm going to recess now for 10 minutes just to give IT some time to try and stabilize this. And please, you can remain on this login or you can log off and come back on, but please be back on in 10 minutes time, and we'll try again at 7:40. Okay, so 10-minute recess.
Of course, no one has their screens on because they just all left. I want Wendy to turn on. Wendy, can you turn your video on so we can just see if this is... Okay, folks, as we start to come back in here, it looks like the quality may have improved. Okay, folks, how well can you hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, I'm obviously not Tara. I'm now on Tara's computer though. So we've got a new laptop and I'm in place. If you can hear me, I will continue with the meeting. We've got everybody back online. So our apologies for that. Deputy Mayor Ward, I believe we were at section B of the General Committee report.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section B of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Thompson that section B of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted. This is with regards to funding for Cornerstone to recovery, the memo regarding noise bylaw enforcement, the draft community safety and well-being plan, and free transit for Barrie High School students. Comments or questions on section B? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harris, did you have a question or comment?
Sorry, am I waiting till the next portion? Yes, I hear. Okay, I see Wendy nodding. Disregard. I'm good.
Okay. On section B, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of section B? Is anyone opposed? None. That carries. Section C, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section C of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section C of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be received. This is the presentation regarding the parking strategy. Comments or questions? It's just a presentation to be received. Okay, seeing none. Those in favor of section C? Any opposed? None. That carries. Section D, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, section D of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section D of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted. This is the sole source agreement with Cornerstone regarding clothing bin locations. Councillor Natalie Harris, did you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Yes, I would, through you, just take a moment to recognize someone who was behind the scenes the entire time during this wonderful journey to get to this successful day with the Women's Treatment Center. So I have just a really little quick blurb I'd like to read. I would like to take this time to recognize the tireless perseverance and contributions to the implementation of the Cornerstone to Recovery Women's Addiction Treatment Center by community leader Mark Hanneman Cohen. Mark wanted to join the Zoom tonight, but he was unable to because he is handling a humanitarian emergency in Nigeria, as he is the director of the humanitarian programs with the African Human Rights Coalition. So I think that's a pretty valid reason to maybe not make it to the Zoom tonight. A small glimpse into the philanthropic work Mark participates in outside of his local community endeavors include directing African humanitarian alliances and acquiring protection funds for these humanitarian services. Mark possesses many years of frontline advocacy work in the fight to protect the quality of life for those living with HIV/AIDS and substance abuse, and has spearheaded the development of club drug interventions with a global focus on LGBTQI2S human rights advocacy. In 1988, Mark began serving on the board of directors of the University of Miami's Community Alliance Against AIDS. In 1993, he co-founded the Community AIDS program in Miami Beach, serving as the foundation's vice president from 93 to 97, and then serving as president from 97 to 2007. In Barrie, Mark served on the board of the AIDS Committee of Simcoe County from 2010, becoming board chair from 2011 to 2014, and this committee is now called the Gilbert Center. I met Mark at the beginning of my term as city councillor when I worked with former MP Alex Nuttall to establish the declaration of a public health emergency on the opioid crisis. Mark and I immediately became close friends as our social objectives aligned, and we had a passion to make powerful changes in the city of Barrie. When the motion to declare the public health emergency on the opioid crisis did not pass, we did not give up. Mark flew into action to have meetings with addiction treatment centers, and when he met with the director of Cornerstone to Recovery, he told me that that was the one. Our journey to where we are tonight with the final vote for the treatment center started over a year ago. We toured the facility, searched out and toured potential properties for a similar facility in Barrie, attended evidence-based addiction treatment conferences in Toronto, introduced the director and the co-founder to Mayor Lehman, and vowed together to make this happen. Mark was always part of the project conversations, always provided his wealth of knowledge, and always encouraged me to take care of myself while we both vowed to never give up. You see, sometimes it's easy for me to forget that I am in recovery too, and I need to always focus on my own health. Mark made sure that that always happened. Mark, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for not only being a fierce and humble advocate, but for also being my friend. I could not have done this without you. It is with great pleasure that Mayor Lehman and I present you with this certificate of appreciation for all of your efforts towards making the Women's Addiction Treatment Center in the city of Barrie a reality. You deserve to be recognized and congratulated.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. And members of council, we have a certificate here from Mr. Cohen's assistance in bringing this forward to this point. And Having known Mark for many years, I certainly echo Councillor Harris's praise for his work and passion for the causes that he is such a tireless advocate for in the community. So thanks for that, Councillor Harris.
Thank you so much. Congrats, Mark.
Are there any other comments or questions on section D of the general committee report? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question on section D. Those in favor, please indicate. I am as well. That makes it unanimous. And the motion carries. Section E, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section E of the general committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you very much. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section E of the general committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted. This is with regards to the capital funding request from the Sandbox. Comments, questions? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've again, since last week, spent quite a bit of time speaking with the parties involved in the Sandbox and trying to get my head wrapped around the requests that we've got coming forward here, and it's significant dollars from our community to invest into this, and I just think we need to have a little bit further dialogue, and I potentially have an amendment coming forward depending on the direction of the dialogue, but I would definitely be interested to hear what other members of council have got to say, whether they're in favor or opposition of this before we continue forward and have a final vote.
Okay, thanks for that comment, Councillor Harvey. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank you, Councillor Harvey, for keeping the fight. I know you and I have had many discussions about this topic, and you and I think, came to a resolution that I think all of council are going to be quite happy with. But before we get to the ask, I just maybe wanted to make a few comments about, not me selling the Sandbox, and maybe I'll do less selling and a little more telling about the facts of the Sandbox. I believe that conversations have been going on with City Hall and with the Sandbox since maybe 2015. And those talks are that there's a real need in our community to help businesses. And it's just not small businesses, and it's just not entrepreneurs. It's actually entrepreneurs too, which are basically people who work as employees, but really take on the passion, the strength, and the focus and the desire to take on their role as an entrepreneur would and really move mountains. So 2017, city staff and the Sandbox really said, okay, let's take some action. So city staff decided to hire an outside consulting firm called the Clements, and they did an investigation and really understood what Sandbox's and the City of Barrie's vision would be for the end result. And that came at a price tag of roughly 1.4 to 1.5 million. It's a bit strange to me that city staff and the Sandbox decided that they're not going to take the recommendation of the Clements consulting firm's findings, and they decided that the end result would be $1 million. And I have some intuition and my own thoughts on why they came to that conclusion, and probably because they had the let's get it done attitude and maybe ask for permission later. And I'm not going to fault the Sandbox for that at all. 2019, the project ended up being over $800,000 over budget. So I can definitely agree with you, Councillor Harvey. That is totally, you would think, mismanagement. But I think like any project, when you start, if anybody's done a home renovation or if anybody's built out their business, your passions get involved, and all of a sudden where you think some construction costs were going to cost one thing, they end up costing a lot more, because when you start uncovering some of the infrastructure, maybe it's not as good as you maybe hoped it to be. So the facts is that they're $800,000 over budget. And I had a conversation with Mr. Bush previous to our general committee meeting, And I just said to him to break it down to me. And he basically said that the $800,000, and I said, well, give me the needs and give me the wants. And he said, okay, Mike, the patio was definitely not a need. It was a want. So I'm taking that off the table. But the infrastructure and within the building was well over $600,000 extra. And that means the plumbing, the HVAC, the electrical, the drywall, the insulation. We're not talking about the fancy grass on the walls and the fancy aesthetic stuff that maybe we're caught up in the vision. And I buy into his vision. I really do. Because I believe that if Barrie wants to raise the bar, we need to attract the right people. There are so many of our business community donating their time. That came at a good time. Donating their time to help support the business community. And so therefore we're looking at $600,000 extra, which they're trying to split 300 and 300. And that's what we're asking today is to council to support $300,000 of extra costs. I do want to, is Stephanie Slichter online and is she available to talk, Mayor Lehman?
Yes, she is.
So I'm going to ask Stephanie Slichter through you, Mayor, in a few minutes to maybe comment. Last week, there were some comments from City Council that maybe suggested that it wasn't a $500,000 ask, that actually was an $875,000 give from the City of Barrie. And I think there's some ambiguity. There's a little bit of clarification that we do need, that there was a solid $500,000 ask, and the extra $375,000 that on the books was given to the Sandbox was a matter of fact already agreed upon in the lease agreement. And I believe the elevator was added, which is $100,000. But I have asked Stephanie Slichter earlier that I may be asking this question, so I hope it doesn't come at a shock to her. Stephanie, please.
Ms. Slichter.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you to Councillor McCann. Per the staff report, there was a $500,000 commitment at the time that the staff report came through. Through the execution of the construction, there was $320,000 that was allocated as part of capital maintenance and repair that was facilitated through the Sandbox. For example, elevator, fire suppression that were included in the lease as the city's commitments.
So through you to the mayor, through you, Mayor, to Stephanie Slichter, please. So really there was a $500,000 grant that went to the construction of the Sandbox, correct?
Mayor Lehman, through to Councillor McCann, yes, there was a $500,000 commitment made at the time the project was initiated.
So those are the bones, right? So then we have to ask the question, why invest in the Sandbox? And I gave this considerable thought, and I said to myself, well, maybe a better question is, does this council that's sitting in front of us right now, do they want to invest and assist business in Barrie? So does this council that's here tonight want to invest and support business in Barrie, right? And if the answer is no, that's not really one of our mandates, and we want to maybe just deal with infrastructure and garbage and et cetera, I mean, I can totally respect that. But if the answer is yes, that this council wants to invest in business, then I believe that the investment of $300,000 extra to the Sandbox tonight is a good investment, maybe even a great investment, for the simple fact that this organization does so much. And we have so many strong pillars in our community, strong businesses that are supporting this, this business model. And also, the matter of fact is that we've already swam 80% across Lake Simcoe. There's no sense of us stopping now and swimming all the way back. I think that, Councillor Harvey made a comment that we're down a rabbit hole we can't get out of. And I appreciate that analogy, because I believe that's where we are. But more importantly, I believe that what's going to happen as a result of us finishing this project, and once COVID's over, and getting people inside the facility and helping the small business owners, helping the medium-sized business owners. And what's happening right now, which I alluded to a little bit last week, is you're finding long-term businesses that are here in Barrie that have been doing business the same way for decades, are now having to reinvent themselves. And they're looking at some of the business leaders and not knowing how. And so here's a model like Sandbox that's going to be able to take these long-standing businesses in Barrie that you all know and going to be able to revamp their models so they can compete in the global market. So we can keep these businesses in Barrie and keep their employees strong. So, you know, I know there's quite a few council members that maybe aren't so focused on the business, that maybe are focused more on the social services. And I definitely have spent 2 years working with you to understand that that is a reality, that a lot of you are more focused on social services, and I can respect that. But Councillor Robert Thompson made a statement, I can't remember if it was public or if it was just between him and I, that for you to have a healthy social service industry in Barrie, you need to have a strong market, a business market. So let me maybe reframe that. When you invest in social services, you invest in social services by investing in Barrie businesses. They're not mutually exclusive. You can't have one social services without having a strong business community. And that's why this Sandbox ticks all those markers off. I do want to read something from Sandbox that they sent to me that they wanted me to read to council. I won't read it all, just take maybe 2 minutes. And I'm pleased to share that Simcoe County Economic Development Subcommittee has approved $15,360 of funding for an equity, diversity, and inclusion pilot program. It will now proceed to committee for the whole on October 27th and is anticipated to be on council agenda by November 10th. Community partners, which this was something that was brought up by many councillors last week, community partners playing a key role in supporting the program and have gained the support from across the region. These include Simcoe County, Georgian College Henry Bernick Entrepreneurial Center, Small Business Enterprise Center, Barrie, Aurelia, and Simcoe County, Small Business Enterprise Center, South Georgian Bay, Accelerate HER, Community Development Corp, Aurelia, Community Futures Development Corporation, North Simcoe, Center for Business and Economic Development, Collingwood, Making Change in Simcoe County, and the Gilbert Center, which I believe Councillor Natalie Harris just mentioned. So therefore, this is, I believe, what's best for the city of Barrie, and I believe this is what's best for our business community. And I've talked in great deal with Councillor Harvey, and I've talked to Councillor Robert Thompson, and I believe that they have a solution that I would back wholeheartedly. Thank you, Mayor Lehman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McCann. Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I certainly support the Sandbox. I think we definitely need an operation like this in the city to support and encourage our businesses. And we'll need it even more when we come out of COVID, because I think that those businesses are going to need all the help that they can possibly get. Now, the staff report that we looked at last week was very clear. City's the landlord, and we did everything that we agreed to do, everything that we were supposed to do. And in total, we paid something like $820,000 for improvements to that building. So we met all of our obligations and then some. And this was never supposed to be a city-led operation. It was initiated, it was led by our entrepreneurs in our city. And I think absolutely wonderful. And I think it needs to stay that way. And don't forget, we also every year pay something around the mark of $45,000 for them, as well as give them free rent. Now, during the construction, and I know how these things go, and I think Councillor McCann indicated that, yeah, I mean, they overspent. There's no question about that. It's as simple as that. But I don't think it's appropriate for them to come to us now for a bailout. Now, it's interesting. The capital monies have been spent, but they're not asking for operating funds. They seem to be doing just fine as far as operating goes, and I applaud that. I think that's terrific. This is capital money that these folks have spent And they made those decisions. We didn't as a city. There was a suggestion that spending this 800,000 and then add another 300 on top of that, that it improves our building, it improves our asset, and that we would be able to rent it out for more down the line. And maybe we could, but I suspect that the 800,000 definitely, but adding another 300, I think a large part of that is tenant improvements, and I don't think we'll get our money back. I'm very interested in Councillor McCann's comments that he's worked out some sort of solution. And I'm like Councillor Harvey, I'm going to sit back and listen to the discussion. I would prefer not to give them the money, the 300,000. The second, my other alternative would be to give them the 300,000 as a loan. Similar terms as what we did just 2 motions ago on for the Cornerstone project. So I don't know whether Councillor Harvey and Councillor McCann are thinking about that. That may be an appropriate way to go. But let's remember, first of all, that this is taxpayer money. It's hard to come by, and we need to spend it really wisely. And I'm not satisfied that this is the way to do it. Thanks.
And thanks, Councillor Ripa. If there's an amendment that members prepared to move at this point, it would be a good idea to get that on the floor so we can start talking about that with the full agenda we've got. Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. My amendment would be that motion 20-G-167 of section E of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be amended by the following: by deleting the amount of $45,000 in paragraph 3 and replacing it with $35,000. And I think I forgot to mention at the beginning, it was moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Thompson.
Okay. So it is moved by Councillor Harvey and seconded by Councillor Thompson. Section E of the General Committee report dated October 19th be amended by deleting the amount of $45,000 and replacing it with $35,000. Go ahead, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I mentioned earlier, I've had extensive conversation. I think I've very much well surpassed 4 hours on the phone with the people from the Sandbox, and we've had some very fulsome discussions and some discussions with my colleagues, specifically around what Councillor Riepma just talked about too, and that was potentially looking at this as a loan opposed to a grant situation. However, the reason I've decided to propose the current amendment is more looking at the big picture of long-term sustainability. Obviously, we want them to succeed. There's a lot invested into this particular location and to the whole concept of the Sandbox. However, when you look at it from an annualized perspective too, that the reduction of $10,000 a year to the ongoing annual support over the next 2 years, where obviously it comes up for review again. If $10,000 is going to make it or break it from their annualized budget, then obviously there should be some concerns about their long-term sustainability. However, having a $300,000 loan attached to it really does potentially pose a significant long-term issue with sustainability. So that's the main reason around this particular motion. Again, they're due to report back to council in 2 years' time anyway, with their update on how they've done over the first 3 years. And at that point, council can obviously revisit what type of annualized support they will continue on with the Sandbox.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Comments or questions on the amendment, members of council? Councillor Congo.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Harvey and respectively Councillor Thompson. Following along with this, so I'm reading it as a change of bullet 3 within the standing motion to reduce from $45,000 per year for the next 2 years to $30,000. So I'm looking at this as a collective $30,000 overall that you're reducing from their operating dollars. Could you confirm that for me? Is that the intention?
Go ahead, Councillor Harvey.
For you, Mayor Lehman. Actually, it's not 30,000. The amendment was to bring it from 45,000 down to 35,000. It's an annualized difference of $10,000.
Sorry, follow up through you. So then I'm looking at a total of the next 2 years of, we're talking about a total of $20,000 as a difference in operating dollars. And so while I don't see that as significant from significant enough that I'm thinking, to me, I would rather still lean towards having ongoing conversations if there's a concern about the $300,000 request around funded from the community benefit reserve in response to the capital funding. At this time, I'll be open and honest with you. I'm not aligned to a change in anyone's operating dollars within this time of year in COVID, at least in order to keep whatever is currently been managed, I'm assuming in a pretty structured way, as at least consistent and reliable for them from their planning. So I'm not looking to support a change in a $20,000 overall reduction of their operating dollars, partially because it is tied to operating. If there's another approach, I'd be open to that. But again, hearing that there's a range of concerns, I'm not sure overall if you want to consider referring this back to Finance Committee for further dialogue and scenario planning. But I would be in favor of the motion as it stands.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kungle. Others wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And I promise I won't be like Senator Ted Cruz. I don't support Plan Bs. This amendment seems like a Plan B to me. I can't speak on how the vote on the capital will go, but just because we may or may expect the capital cutting that, not giving it to the Sandbox might not go through. So we're going to cut them through the operating costs. I agree with Councillor Kungle. I'm not supportive of that at this time. If any members of council have concerns about operating costs, they are more than welcome to reach out to the executive director, the board. The Sandbox is having their AGM tomorrow. I can triple check. There might be some components that are not privy to the public, but I'm sure that most of the components or specific questions are eligible to any member of the public or any council members that want to get clarification. Basically, tomorrow is the night to get those questions. AGM meaning their annual general meeting. If at that time, like Councillor Kungle said, there are still concerns about operating, we can most certainly address those either at Finance Committee or in conjunction with our annual budget. But kind of and I'm not necessarily trying to characterize the amendment as a tit for tat, but I just, if there is a passion to get the numbers and achieve cost savings, that's a more wholesome conversation, not one right before an amendment on capital. So I won't be supporting the amendment.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Morales. Are there others who wish to comment on the amendment? Councillor Jim Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you to Councillor Harvey. So definitely valid points made about shifting operating, both on the side of, it's tough to do, and also it's not a big number, but it's not a small number either. And if I missed it, I apologize. Did you have this conversation with the Sandbox that they felt this number was manageable for them in their budget to be able to accommodate a $10,000 decrease?
Go ahead, Councillor.
Through Mayor Lehman to Councillor Harris. Yes, I did have extensive conversations again with the chair of the Sandbox again today. Obviously, they were not in a position to concede to anything that I discussed with them. However, this was a compromise, and he specifically agreed to the fact that if a small decrease in their annualized support from the city would not make it or break it for them, because when initial arguments were coming about to do with the 300,000, which is obviously a whole other big issue, this was in my mind, a small compromise to come to still look at potentially moving forward today, opposed to sending this back to Finance Committee for another discussion at Finance Committee, because I don't want to necessarily hold them up either. And again, if a small reduction to make up for, and where this number came from is if we were to look at the 300K piece as a loan, what would their annualized loan repayment be back to the city, similar to what we did with Cornerstone? And it would be greater than the 10,000 that we're talking about right now. And that's where this number is coming from. Originally, I was looking for a greater number, but through talking with a couple of my colleagues, this seemed to be the one that was a little more palatable for at least a few members around the table.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Yeah, and the sentiments around the table are all very well taken. I think there's, and I applaud you for trying to find a compromise in this, and I am reaching out to the Sandbox to do this in consultation with them, because there's been no concern around the table about their value to our city and to small business and the need for them to be strong moving forward. So I thank you for that.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Any others who wish to comment on the amendment that's on the floor? Councillor Aylwin.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I just have a question for staff. So it's my understanding that $45,000, and I might be wrong, part of it is sponsorship. So I'm wondering if there's any risk of us losing any of those sponsorship benefits that the city receives if we make this cut. So maybe for Ms. Schlichter, and she may not know. Yeah.
Ms. Schlichter.
Hi there, Councillor Aylwin, Mayor Lehman, through you. We are in process, and part of council direction is to negotiate an MOU and to look at some of those benefits. So currently we have a set of benefits. We would have to have a further discussion though with Sandbox to determine if there would be any impacts as a result of reducing the contribution.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Aylwin. Councillor Morales, you did already speak. Did you speak on the amendment or the main motion?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. You're correct. I did speak on the amendment, and at council we speak once. It's just that, I don't know, procedurally, I have information based on the Sandbox saying that they're okay with the number. Do I get another member to say this, or can you give me leeway? I got clarification from Craig Bush, which is pertinent to the amendment, so I can't exactly do that.
Go ahead, Councillor Morales.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm getting information from Craig that he would love not to have a reduction. I'm not saying, obviously, Councillor Gary Harvey's discussions with the chair and or other members aren't substantiated, but the clarification is that they would not like to have a reduction. If this was the only pathway forward, they essentially will seem to make it work, but it's being right now very clearly communicated to me that this is not something they want or even in agreement with. This is very similar to when we get staff reports that say, we do not recommend this motion, but this is an alternative and we will find a way to make it work. So for any members of council that go, okay, Sandbox is favorable or even open to it, that is not the sentiment. Just because we didn't hear alarm bells or have had our emails flooded doesn't mean they're endorsing this. So just clarifying on that for the amendment. Thank you, Mayor Lehman, for the leeway.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harvey, you've already spoken as well. We are in council. Did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to clarify. I don't know if I got misunderstood, but I want to reiterate what Councillor Morales just said, that was my intent with what I said earlier, is that they did not concede, nor would they be happy with a reduction. And that was not the intent of what I said earlier. So I don't know if others misunderstood. That's solely all I wanted to say.
No problem at all. I think that's clear now, and thank you both.
for that. Any other comments, those who haven't had a chance to speak to the amendment yet? Okay, if not, I will call the question on the amendment. It is to reduce the annual contribution from 45,000 to 35. Those in favor, please indicate with your cards. Those opposed, please. Okay, sorry. Can I get the yes votes again? All those in favor of the amendment? Okay, and opposed? Okay, that does carry. So the amendment carries. 6 to 5. I was opposed for the record, but since we're in council, I'm voting and I'm opposed, but it is 6 to 5. It still carries. Are there any further comments on section E of the general committee report? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion as amended on section E of the general committee report. Those in favor, please indicate. Those opposed? 2, it carries. Thank you, members of council. Deputy Mayor Ward, could I have section F, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section F of the general committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section F of the general committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted. This is the 2020 parking strategy. Comments or questions on section F? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just a comment as a point of interest, perhaps to the collective and members of public. I had the opportunity to speak with staff, and while there has been a change in language, although it's carrying, I wanted to make a point of note around just seeking to clarify the reference to hospital parking.
Okay.
So no action associated. Thank you. But I did want to make a note with confirmation from staff and whether or not staff want to speak to this. But I had some calls, I'm not sure if other councillors had, around points of clarification in reference to the section that talk a bit about the change in extended paid parking, an increase of early payment fine and whatnot, typically in the areas of G and H under section 3. And as the reference as originally posted spoke to hospital area, I have been able to clarify with staff for the interest of the public that these are not in any way associated to current RVH hospital parking spots, nor is the revenue generated going to the hospital. And perhaps on a go forward, I believe we're adopting language to clarify and differentiate. So we really are talking about, for those looking at these changes to the reference of hospital area, those 36 parking spots on Galley Court and Quarry Ridge. So just a note for the record.
Okay. Thanks for that, Councillor Kungle. Any other comments on the parking strategy? Nope. Okay, I will call the question. Those in favor, please indicate. Is anyone opposed? None. That carries unanimously, and thank you to staff. The parking strategy is a substantial amount of work with lots of consultation and research, and ultimately quite an extensive motion and strategy. So thank you very much to staff who've had final approval tonight of that strategy. Section G, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section G of the general committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section G of the general committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted. This is the correspondence from the circulation list regarding the extension of the patio season. We will be dealing with that by direct motion later. This is just to receive the correspondence, to adopt the motion to refer the correspondence. The second item is a memo regarding the pavement management update. It's also been referred to committee. On those motions, any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor of section G? Are any opposed? None. That carries. Section H, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section H of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be received.
Okay, it is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section H of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be received. This is to receive the report on a confidential potential land disposition matter, Vespra and Victoria Streets. The motion to be adopted is the next section. This is to receive the report. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Or any opposed? None, that carries. Section I, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section I of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section I of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 be adopted. This is with regards to surplusing of city-owned property at Vesper Street. Councillor Ripma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We discussed this last week, and when we look at the motion, it seems to me that we really need some more information and some further discussion on this. And I have an amendment that says that motion 20G 172 of Section I of the General Committee report dated October 19, 2020 concerning surplus of city-owned property Vesper Street be referred to the City Building Committee for further discussion, further consideration, and I would be happy to speak a little more about that. And sorry, that is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Congo.
Okay, we have a motion moved by Councillor Ripma, seconded by Councillor Kungle, that motion 20G 172 of Section I of the General Committee report dated October 19th, 2020 concerning the surplus of city-owned property Vesper Street be referred to the City Building Committee for further consideration. As a referral motion, it is not debatable. So are there any questions of process before I call the question? It's to send this to City Building Committee. Okay, no questions of process. I'll call the question. Those in favor of the motion to refer it to committee, please indicate. Any opposed? Okay, sorry. I'm going to need you to vote again there. I'm not sure I tracked everyone's vote correctly. Those in favor of the motion to refer it? Okay, opposed? 4, I'm in favor, so it does carry 7-4. Okay, so the amendment carries on the main motion as amended. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor of Section I as amended, please indicate. Any opposed? None, that carries. Okay, that completes the General Committee report from October 19th. Deputy Mayor Ward, the General Committee report dated October 20th, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be received.
Okay, it is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be received. This is to receive the report of a confidential personal information and solicitor-client privilege matter related to a workplace investigation. It's to receive the report. Comments or questions on Section A? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of Section A, please indicate. Okay, I am in favor as well. Those opposed? None. That carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Thompson that Section B of the General Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be adopted. I'll speak to that.
Okay, it's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be adopted. This is with regards to a workplace investigation. Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
One of the advantages of having the council follow general committees, we get a chance to think about things for, in this case, 6 days. And I'd like to send this off for more discussion, which means sending it to committee of the whole tonight. I want to get some guidance from the, I have a motion here, but I want some guidance from the city clerk. do we have to do it now, or can we do it later in the meeting? Because I know there's still items on the agenda people may want to know about before we dissolve into committee of the whole.
So, well, I can answer, or the clerk can. It is at the pleasure of council when we deal with the matters on our agenda. I would suggest to you that we could complete the public items should there be a motion to move into committee of the whole. Then we would move into committee of the whole at the end of the agenda, as we normally do with in-camera items.
Okay, should I move the motion or procedural motion? I have one in front of me, so.
Madam Clerk, would that be in order now?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Deputy Mayor Ward. We could potentially just, if council's pleasure, to deal with the rest of the agenda before we move into committee of the whole, then we could just delay moving this motion until the end of the meeting. Or if you want to, we could move it now just to see if council wishes to go into committee of the whole later on in the meeting as well.
But we wouldn't have to actually go in right now, is that what you're saying? If it
Yes.
passes? Okay.
Yes.
I guess that'd be my preference, to have a vote on it to see whether we have that, and then wait till after we've dealt with other items.
Okay, so procedurally, what we would do then, Deputy Mayor Ward, is you'd move the motion to go into committee of the whole. If council approves that, then I will ask council's, we'll vote on whether or not to move that item to the end of the agenda, so that we would deal with it after the remaining public items. So we'll do two votes. First, whether or not to go into committee of the whole. Okay. Do you want to put that on the floor then, Deputy Mayor Ward?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jim Harris. The council adjourned to resolve itself into committee of the whole in camera with the mayor as the chair to discuss motion 20G174 of section B of General Committee Report dated October 20th, 2020, confidential personal information and solicitor client privilege matter, workplace harassment investigation.
Okay, thank you. Just pulling up the paper here. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Jim Harris, that council adjourn to resolve itself into committee of the whole in camera with the mayor as chair to discuss motion 20G174 of section B of General Committee Report dated October 20th, 2020, confidential personal information and solicitor client privilege matter, workplace harassment investigation. Councillor Harris, did you have a question of procedure? Yeah.
Sorry, yes, through you, Mayor Lehman, just as procedure, we would still be able to add amendments when we come back out. Is that correct?
Correct. So as with all in-camera meetings, we're in council, so in camera here is called committee of the whole. And similarly, we do not move motions or vote in camera in general committee or in council. The amendments would be moved when we rise and report from committee of the whole after we've had the confidential discussion. So that would be moved in public session after the completion of the confidential discussion.
Thank you for the clarification. Perfect.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. On the motion to resolve into committee of the whole, any further comments or questions? Okay, I will call the question. Those in favor of the motion to move into committee of the whole? I am in favor as well. Any opposed? None. That carries. Okay, members of council, procedurally, my suggestion would be to do the remaining public items as we normally do and move into committee of the whole in camera at the end of the meeting. And then, of course, we will come back in public session to rise and report from committee of the whole. I'm going to call a vote on that just so that we're clear on the order of business tonight. Any comments around that? I think we already heard a few. Okay. Those in favor of moving into committee of the whole at the end of the public agenda tonight? Okay, I am as well. Any opposed? None? That carries. Okay. So we will do that following to discuss section B of that general committee report. Madam Clerk.
Just a question of, just a matter of process, Mayor Lehman. Just at the end of the meeting, we'll need to take a few-minute recess just to, before we move into committee of the whole.
Okay, we will do that.
Okay. We can then now move to the Planning Committee report from October 20th. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the Planning Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Thompson that Section A of the Planning Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be adopted. This is an application for zoning bylaw amendment on Ardagh Road, the subject of the deputation tonight. Any comments or questions? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a point of clarification. Under Section B to be adopted, we spoke about the first part of that, but there was a Planning Committee report dated October 20th, A and B. Have we missed that around adopting it before we move into Section A around the zoning bylaw amendment, or does that fall into a different process piece?
The order of motions I have is Section A is the approval, the motion to be adopted with regards to the Ardagh Road application. Section B I have is the report of the 2 Planning Act public meetings. I'm just looking over at the clerk. I've got that correct?
Okay.
Okay. So this was the only decision matter that was on Planning Committee's agenda last Tuesday. The other 2 were public meetings, which we'll receive the report on next, if that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any comments on the on Section A, on the matter to be adopted? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of Section A? Any opposed? None. That carries. Section B, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the Planning Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the Planning Committee report dated October 20th, 2020 be received. This is to receive the report, as mentioned, of the 2 public meetings. One was for 113, 117 Bayfield, and 6, 8, and 12 Sophia Street. The other public meeting was with regards to 136 and 112 Bayfield Street, as well as 14 Sophia West, 113 and 115 Maple Avenue. So it's to receive the report from the public meetings. Comments or questions on Section B? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of Section B? Or any opposed? None. That carries. Okay, that completes the Planning Committee report. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward, Councillor Thompson. We have no items of deferred business on tonight's City Council agenda. We do have 2 direct motions. The first is from Councillor Aylwin. Councillor Aylwin, would you like to introduce your direct motion?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Kungle. That one, that should the weather conditions permit, patios at eating establishments be permitted in the city of Barrie until November 30th, 2020. And if there is snow or ice weather conditions, that the patios be removed upon 48 hours notice from the city. 2, that businesses affected by the downtown streetscape project in the downtown be permitted to reopen their patios once the paving is complete and upon notification by the city to do so. 3, that the Patios Everywhere program continue to November 30th, 2020. And 4, that enforcement of the snow clearing downtown bylaw 2008-212 be suspended until the conclusion of the Patios Everywhere program or November 30th, 2020, whichever comes first. However, all business owners and or property owners within the downtown business improvement area shall ensure that all snow and ice is removed daily by 10 a.m. as noted in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much. It's moved by Councillor Aylwin, seconded by Councillor Kungle, that should the weather conditions permit, patios at eating establishments be permitted in the city of Barrie until November 30th, 2020. And if there's snow or ice weather conditions, that patios be removed upon 48 hours notice from the city.
2, that businesses affected by the downtown streetscape project in the downtown be permitted to reopen their patios once paving is complete and upon notification by the city to do so. 3, that the Patios Everywhere program continue to November 30th, 2020. 4, that enforcement of the snow clearing bylaw 2008-2012 be suspended until the conclusion of the Patios Everywhere program or November 30th, whichever comes first. However, all business owners and property owners within the downtown business improvement area shall ensure that all snow and ice is removed daily by 10 a.m. as noted in the bylaw. Did you care to speak to that, Councillor Elwin?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. So this was a request that came through from the downtown BIA, and city staff were working with the downtown BIA to solve some issues around snow clearing. And then we realized that there may be an issue also with the paving that's underway with the Dunlop streetscape. So we wanted to make sure that that paving gets done as soon as possible, because businesses have waited for too long to have that road open. So we didn't want to delay that any further. So we found a compromise position here where patios will be allowed after the completion of the paving, if a business is affected by that paving. COVID has hit our local businesses hard, and this is one small way that we can support our local business community, not just in the downtown, but across the city through the Patios Everywhere program. And to me, this is a slam dunk. I'm really thankful that the downtown BIA and city staff were able to work through some of the challenges posed by snow clearing and paving, and I'm really thankful for staff's work and time on that. So hoping that council can support this evening and support local. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Comments and questions, Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you to the mover of the motion, Councillor Alwyn, is there a reason for the 48 hours? I'm just curious as to I've got some comments, but I'm curious if 48 hours came from somewhere specific.
Councillor Owen.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Morales, and I'm sure city staff would be able to speak to it better. It was an operational concern in terms of snow clearing, I believe, and I do see that Ms. Miller just popped on, so maybe she could chime in on this if she's willing.
Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. To Councillor Morales, Councillor Elwin is correct. Our operational staff do take a look at the radar forecast and believe that they would have 48 hours notice of any winter event that we would need to be having the patios removed. So that's the 48-hour notice requirement.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Ms. Miller. Would staff not be able to see on the radar our winter event within 72 hours?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, yes, they certainly would. But there is a number of operational requirements that need to take place. And so the 2 days we feel would be the minimum amount of time that we need. It would also give the more flexibility for the patios to stay open as long as possible.
Okay. Ms. Miller, did we consult either the BIA or businesses directly if they're okay with 48 hours? What I mean by, and I'm just gonna provide some color to it. They get a notice at 10 p.m. I'm assuming in an email fashion, or maybe it gets put a piece of paper at their businesses in the morning. If they get a notice at night or even in the morning, there's 10, 12 hours that go by. They pick up the phone, they call their kind of people who handle operations. I'm just wondering if 48 hours is enough time for them to comply with the city policies. If the answer is they're more than happy with 48 hours, I'm very supportive and they don't want to take up this time. I'm just wondering if 48 hours is not only from operational from a city perspective, but also from a compliance perspective from the businesses.
Ms. Miller.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Morales, yes, this has been a collaborative effort with the BIA, and they have confirmed to us that the patios that are affected are able to comply within the 48 hours.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. And Councillor Alwyn, Councillor Kungl, I'll be supportive of your motion.
Any other comments, members of council, on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll add my own support. I think patios everywhere was something we did early in COVID that has helped a challenged restaurant sector to survive. I think we all probably hoped when this program began that we wouldn't be talking about it in November, but here we are. I was asked about this a few times in the media today, and I had to say any business that's able to create a comfortable environment outdoors in November in Barrie, we should give them all the kudos for that. And let them take their shot at doing that, because certainly we know that space means safety right now, and space is something that we're able to grant by changing our bylaws and by promoting the Patios Everywhere program. So I wish every bit of luck and good weather to the restaurant community that are able to take advantage of this. So with that, I'll call the question on the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment, please indicate. Is anyone opposed? None. I'm in favor as well. That carries unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The second direct motion is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by myself. Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
That's right. Moved by myself, seconded by Mayor Lehman, that the province of Ontario be requested to provide additional funding to the city of Barrie to address the financial implications associated with COVID-19 through phase 2 of the Safe Restart program. 2, that the Director of Finance and Treasurer be authorized to prepare and submit an application for phase 2 funding under the Safe Restart program.
Thanks very much. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by myself, that the province of Ontario be requested to provide additional funding to the city of Barrie to address the financial implications associated with COVID-19 through phase 2 of the Safe Restart program. 2, that the Director of Finance and Treasurer be authorized to prepare and submit an application for phase 2 funding under the Safe Restart program. Comments? Sorry, Deputy Mayor Ward, did you care to speak to this at all?
There's a memo on our circulation list that we've got about this. The province is making more funding available for municipalities. It's got a very early deadline before our next general committee or our next council meeting. So that's why this is coming forward in a direct motion tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the direct motion? Any opposed? I'm in favor. That is unanimous. Okay, thank you, members of council. That completes the direct motions. That brings us to inquiries of staff on our agenda. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have any inquiries of staff?
I have none.
Members of council, do you have any inquiries of staff? Or members of council for that matter. Okay, announcements. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have any announcements?
I have none.
Members of council, do you have any announcements? Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you, I just wanted to share that today is Intersex Day project, and that is something you can go to intersexday.org to get more information about that, but I wanted to make sure that we announce that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Kungle.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to share some news received by Chief Main Prize that might be of interest to the public, and I wanted to thank them for their follow through. So on November the 4th of 2019, City Council had approved a motion concerning the use of resources to support the Simcoe Muskoka opioid strategy and address the overdose crisis. And in that motion, it identified a number of actions, including the installation of needle disposal bins at various locations over a one-year pilot program. And so I was quite pleased to hear that that process around a vendor was successful. And today, I believe we have 8 bins, if I'm counting the locations, across certain areas in the downtown and a bit broader that actually have needle disposal bins for the public to have access to. So I wanted to make a note that those have been installed, I believe, or are being installed this week, that members of the public will see them. And I invite city staff to highlight that on our social media where possible. And to members of council, should you see that communication from Chief Main Prize, I will be sharing that on my social media channels to bring attention to that and sharing that with the health unit. So again, thank you to Barrie Fire and Emergency Services and Operations that work together to determine locations.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Conlow. Yes, another piece of the staff report that Council approved and the staff-driven strategy, you know, a number of actions that the city is taking to attempt to combat the opioid crisis. Councillor McCann, I saw you indicate, I think.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I'd like to, for the last time, promote and market, join the Rotary Club of Barrie in celebrating and decorating the city, Barrie for Halloween. It's the best Halloween spirit contest. The Rotary is doing their best to get the community involved and get the community together. They have 3 prizes. One prize is a beautiful barbecue by Napoleon Gas Barbecues, a local company here in town, for the best house being decorated for Halloween. There's also, there we go, Bradford Greenhouses has teamed up for the second prize for the best door. And Napoleon has donated a second electric gas fireplace for indoors for the best pumpkin carving. So as Halloween is this Saturday, which is almost unbelievable, it's December 30 or October 31st already, get in the spirit, get involved, and the City of Barrie is promoting it, as well as Rotary of Barrie. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Any other announcements, members of council? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to remind residents about our Ward 6 and 7 town hall that's coming up this Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. Obviously, yourself, Councillor Natalie Harris, members of the Police Services Board, and actually today with discussions, CAO Prowse is going to join us also. So I look forward to talking about the interest or the things that are of interest to our residents. Go online to register so that way you can log in through Zoom or through the telephone. Again, that was this Thursday at 7 p.m.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey. Yes, looking forward to that. Yourself and Councillor Harris and I at 7 o'clock again on Thursday evening. Any other announcements, members of council? Seeing none, I do have the usual raft. I am going to start with Halloween because there have been so many requests coming to the city. And the first thing I will say is go to the Public Health Unit's website. They have right on the COVID-19 page, which is linked from the banner at the top, there is how to do Halloween safely. And the guidance is, it has not changed, that Halloween trick-or-treating can be done safely with some changes to what we all typically do. I won't go through all of those, but I will reiterate that cloth masks are necessary, not costume masks. Plastic masks with a hole around the mouth and the nose don't do any good against COVID, so everybody who goes out should be wearing a mask. Please go out only with members of your household or stay 6 feet away from anyone who's not in your household. And that's the general rule that's been in place since the beginning of COVID. We are suggesting that rather than ringing doorbells, people hand out their candy outside. Preliminary weather forecast is good. I'm knocking wood to hope it stays that way. If possible, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put a table out on the driveway with individually wrapped candy bags. That is also the part of the guidance. So rather than everybody putting their hand in a bucket to pull out their candy, individually wrapped Halloween candies distributed outside is the safest way to do trick-or-treating. And it also allows you to stay 6 feet away from each other while still taking your kids out and being able to safely do that. So please go on the health unit's website for how to celebrate Halloween safely. Of course, if you or your children have any symptoms, don't go out. And if you're not comfortable trick-or-treating, as was just outlined, there's the decorating contests. You can go for a walk, take a look at the decorations, but not engage in trick-or-treating. Lots of ways to be outside safely. And we wish everybody a safe and happy Halloween. By following the guidance, we can all keep each other safe as we move through the Halloween holiday. A reminder as well, Battery Collection Week takes place following Halloween. Dead batteries go into those Halloween-themed bags that should have arrived in your mail in September. If you put them in that sealable collection bag and put them out on your regular collection day, we will collect dead batteries on the week of November 2nd to the 6th. Our overnight parking restrictions, I can't believe I have to start talking about this. They're only a month away, December 1st. So this is your first reminder, and I'll probably say this again at every meeting until March, that starting December 1st, you do have to get your car off the street overnight to allow for snow clearance. In the downtown BIA, it's from 3 to 6 a.m. In the rest of the city, it's midnight to 7 a.m. So start planning ahead, and like me, working on emptying at least part of your garage so that you'll be able to use either your garage or your driveway because you can't park on the street. Prior to December 1st, should there be a winter maintenance event, i.e. a significant snowfall that we have to plow, we will communicate that every way we can on social and broadcast media via every one of the city's channels. We are accepting submissions for the annual Christmas card contest. Those are due by the 28th, the day after tomorrow. Entry forms are available online. Finished art should be submitted to my office at City Hall. For more information, barrie.ca/card contest. We're also accepting nominations now for the Mayor's Innovation Awards through Invest Barrie. These annual awards celebrate and recognize the most creative solutions from businesses in Barrie. The deadline for submission is December 17th, 2020. Winners will be announced at an online ceremony in February 2021. Residents and non-residents are encouraged to nominate a deserving business, organization, or individual for innovation in 2020. And of course, this year has seen plenty of innovation as we've tried to deal with COVID. More information is on investbarrie.ca. The public review and comment period for the new official plan draft and the urban design guidelines is open until December 22nd to get involved in planning the future of our city, which is shaped by our official plan. You can visit buildingbarrie.ca/official plan and review the documents and learn how you can give us feedback. Okay, and in conclusion, in terms of the announcements, just a reminder from the health unit of the gathering restrictions that are in place: 10 people indoors, 25 people outdoors. And of course, the guidance is always to limit your contacts, close contacts, as much as possible to only those people within your own household. Think carefully about what you go out to do. And parents, of course, should screen children for symptoms of COVID-19 every day before they leave for school using the online screening tools. Visit the health unit's website for more information, as always, and search for those trusted sources of information. Okay, with that, the remaining public item is the bylaws. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills will be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bills 93, 94, 95, and 96.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 93, 94, 95, and 96. Comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of those bylaws? Any opposed? None. That carries. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Do we not do the confirmation bylaw, do we?
No, we have Bill 97, which I believe
okay,
is the
yes,
other
okay,
separated planning
yep.
matter. Yep.
That's right. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill read a first time this day and finally passed. First, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 97.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by, I'm sorry, who is the seconder, Councillor Deputy Mayor Ward?
It's actually left off, but it's Councillor Thompson.
Thompson, yeah. Okay. That leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 97. Councillor Natalie Harris, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I'd like to put the bill on the floor, and I have an amendment with seconded by Councillor Morales. That Bill 97 be amended by the following. 1, in paragraph 12, the words "and a maximum of 3 surface parking spaces" be deleted after the words "underground structured parking spaces." And 2, paragraph 13 be deleted and replaced with the following. that notwithstanding the provisions of Table 4.6 of Bylaw 2009-141, a minimum parking ratio of 1.9 spaces per unit shall be provided, inclusive of 13 surface visitor parking spaces and an underground structured parking lot with the provision of a 1-to-1 parking ratio for the purposed apartment use. In the residential multiple dwelling section density special provision hold RM2 SP 598 H150 zone in accordance with Schedule B attached to this bylaw.
Okay, thank you. So we have an amendment to a bylaw. It is moved by Councillor Natalie Harris, seconded by Councillor Morales, that Bill 97 be amended by the following. In paragraph 12, the words "and a maximum of 3 surface parking spaces" be deleted after the words "underground structured parking spaces." And 2, that paragraph 13 be deleted and replaced with the following: that notwithstanding the provisions of Table 4.6 of Bylaw 2009-141, a minimum parking ratio of 1.9 spaces per unit shall be provided, inclusive of 13 surface visitor parking spaces and an underground structured parking lot, with the provision of a 1-to-1 parking ratio for the proposed apartment use. In the residential multiple dwelling second density special provision hold RM2 SP 598 H150 zone in accordance with Schedule B attached to this bylaw. So, Madam Clerk, I'll just confirm, is it a 2/3 vote that's required for the bylaw stage? Okay. So when we get to the vote, because we're amending a bylaw, it does require 2/3 vote of the members of council voting. Councillor Harris, did you wish to speak to the proposed amendment to the bylaw? Go ahead.
Yes, please. Thank you, through you, Mayor Lehman. I was away when the presentation was given for this site on Veterans Lane, Veterans Drive. It has been a very complicated plan. We've had a lot of discussion with staff. We've had multiple Zoom meetings trying to come to some middle ground with respect to the parking, the underground parking, the above ground parking. And Councillor Harvey was gracious enough to present information on the day that I was away. And after that meeting, of course, I was reviewing everything and watching the presentation. And after some discussion with staff and going through my own notes and also taking into consideration the complex nature of this site, the shape of the site, everything to do with it, I've decided to revert back to what staff recommended. I think it's the best thing to do in this situation, especially with the extensive work that they have done with this plan, the collaboration that they have attempted with the builder and the planner. And this is the way, this bill is the way I feel comfortable with it. And I also to respect the amazing efforts that staff also made with this complicated site.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Harris. Are there others who wish to comment on the proposed amendment to the bylaw? Okay, seeing none, I'll remind you that it is a 2/3 vote in favor required for an amendment to a bylaw to pass. And with that, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the amendment, please indicate. Are any opposed? None. That carries unanimously. On the bylaw as amended, comments or questions? Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor of Bill 97 as amended? Are any opposed? None. That carries. Okay, the confirmation bylaw will wait until after committee of the whole. So we will now move into committee of the whole as it is that time on the agenda. Madam Clerk, how long a recess do you require?
Mayor Lehman, I think probably about between 5 and 10 minutes. Mr. Nolan's just going to help set up a new meeting for the committee of the whole.
Okay, so we will leave the current Zoom webinar. Okay, So with that,
Can I just make one request? People check their mail because I just sent them something, a proposed amendment. I want them to see it that we're going to be discussing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of council, we will move into committee of the whole it is 9:04. We'll say in 10 minutes at 9:14, we'll commence committee of the whole. So at on or before 9:14, please log into the new link that will be provided. That completes the public agenda for the moment. We will come back into public agenda after committee of the whole when we rise and report. Okay.